Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real. I'm your host, Bob Gallagher. Joining me in studio today, our co-host, Job Torini, and special guest, Justin Melo of Lair Realty Partners in Chelmsford. Welcome to the show, guys.
How are you, Bob?
I'm good. This is our special holiday edition. Yeah.
Feels very festive here.
It does. It's not snowing, though, so it's all good.
Yes.
That's a good thing. I don't want snow.
Nobody wants snow. I don't even want the cold.
No.
I'd be okay with this being like a San Diego Christmas.
That would be perfect.
Probably not going to get that, though.
Absolutely not.
So, Justin, we wanted you to come in today and kind of talk about how things are going out in your area. So you service all of Middlesex County,
Correct.
Surrounding areas, that type of thing. Why don't you tell us what's going on with your business right now?
Business it's still taking off. We've had a lot of people, buying this past couple weeks, and it feels like the market almost, took an upbeat from the couple slow weeks that we've had recently.
Right. It usually around the holidays, I wouldn't say they get slow, but they tend to slow down because people get distracted with holiday parties and shopping and everything else. And we were just saying, like the last week, all of a sudden people are coming out of the woodwork, want to buy houses again.
Yeah, exactly. I think people were, kind of waiting for the holidays to end before they went out there. But, things have been still coming on the market. And I think people are just looking for the right opportunity. And that's just been presented to them in the past couple of weeks.
And no snow this month certainly is not hurting.
That certainly does help. No one ever wants to go look at houses in 6 inches of snow.
No.
Never mind
1 inch.
Exactly. If it's snowing out, no one wants to leave the house.
Or when it's cold.
Yes, or when it's
tough.
cold, yeah. The weather hasn't been that bad the last couple of weeks. Maybe that's got something to do with it. So where do you think we're headed in, going into the new year? What do you see in your crystal ball for business?
Well, my crystal ball isn't 100% accurate.
But close, like 99?
Exactly. But I'd say that we're really heading into still appreciating in the market. I think the fact that everyone was a little bit more concerned with the interest rates going high, that scared a lot of people. So I think that's why we had a little bit of a slower fall than usual.
Yeah.
But I think the talk of we're going into crisis or we're going into a turning market or we're going to be crashing, I don't think that is going to be happening within the next couple of years.
Good. I'm glad to hear you say that because that's our opinion too. I think it's just overblown. Nobody's really said, prepare for prepare for a recession or for a massive price drop like we saw, about a decade ago. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of a good thing, isn't it, if prices actually appreciate at a slower rate?
Correct. Yeah, we've just had such a crazy market where, we've had no inventory, tons of buyers, and, people just flooding the market. And so, of course, that caused a lot more bidding wars. It caused, just a lot more people concerned that they weren't even going to be able to find a house. Right. And then, we're not turning into a bad market. We're turning into a normal market.
Right, which is honestly what we want.
Yeah, exactly. It helps buyers for sure, and it definitely still is a benefit to sellers as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a slower appreciating market is not the worst thing, especially even if you're a seller right now, because most people, when they sell, they're buying again. Mm-hmm. So if things are going crazy, it doesn't help them either.
Correct.
I think the immediate thing is, too, if you look at it as your first transaction, you want to be on whatever favorability side you're on. Like if you're a seller, you want to be a seller's market. If you're a buyer, you want to be a buyer's market. But as someone who's lost and won, I just like the normal market. And I think that's the most important thing that we're being discussed is that the demand, whether it's inventory or whatever's preventing it from coming out, is coming out when it gets a chance to come out. So if we hold off for a few months and inventory gets big, like Justin just commented, their buyers are still rolling into the system. Our pre-qualification numbers are up month to month. So this kind of idea that this age group is not going to buy homes, that's
wrong.
Not now done.
Yeah.
It's, you're not going to live with 3 kids in an 1,100 square foot condo in Boston.
No, you're not. Nope.
No, and I think the real winners of the fall market were absolutely the buyers because there was a lot of inventory for them to look at, but not only that, a lot of price reductions, and they were able to really get some great deals. Right. So when people are talking about, when was the best time to buy, the fall, there were so many opportunities without having to go through bidding wars. It was just a clear win for buyers this fall.
Right. Right, and that's one of the things to point out too. Like you were saying, the bidding wars. Like during the spring, we had a lot of people that got really discouraged. I mean, when you're going out making 5, 6, 7, 8 offers and you're not getting any accepted, and a lot of them you're not even in the running. I mean, we were talking about some this year with 30 and 40 offers. I don't want to say it was common, but certainly east of 128, it was getting to the point where it's pretty common. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you got that many people looking and that few houses for sale, it's going to create a tough spot for a lot of people. I think it's good that things are actually coming back, so you've got a good chance. I mean, you're probably not going to be the only one bidding on a house because it's still pretty active.
Correct.
But you've got a chance if you're only up against 1 or 2 or 3 other people.
Exactly.
If you've got 10, 20, 30 people bidding on a house, I mean,
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still happening. I mean, I just won, luckily a bidding war this weekend on a multifamily in Lowell.
Yeah.
And, there was 5 other offers. So, the demand for great opportunities are still there for buyers, and it's still a great time for sellers because if they do have a great opportunity to present to the buyers, then obviously they're going to get top dollar and they're going to get the bidding wars. So it's an opportunity for everyone, but I can definitely say that there was a lot more opportunities for buyers.
And what about? I hesitate to use the word lower end because there isn't really a lower end anymore. But for first time buyers looking in that below 300 range, is there more there for them too, or is that still ultra competitive?
It's still ultra competitive because it's still a market that, we have a lot more first time home buyers than we have people that are, moving down or, sizing up for their property.
Right.
So I just think it is more competitive because, you have much more people, first-time buyers that are looking for the smaller house, and that price range is just really competitive. I think think anything under 350 is a super competitive market.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes it. So it's still kind of tough, but it would be nice if things like, talking about going back to a normal market, people that have wanted to upgrade for a while but haven't because even the 350 to 650 was so competitive. Now that might be relaxing a little bit.
Yeah.
Now that those people can get a deal or at least a perceived deal on buying one of those houses, maybe they're more likely to move out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which will free up some more inventory, which is really what needs to happen. I mean, we kind of got gridlock in the market. The only way it's going to free up is if somebody starts selling.
Exactly. I mean, from spring to fall, the inventory doubled.
Wow. I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah.
Is it still below average or getting closer to average?
It's still technically below. I mean, I guess average from the past, 6 years maybe, or, the past 3 or 4 years.
Right.
It's definitely above average.
Right.
But, in a normal market, this is still a little bit on the low side.
Yeah. But at least there's stuff to look at now.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing too on rates is, because that's a great point Justin made, is that shocked the market a little bit. But I think for people looking to buy a home, like even if you're 2 or 3 years away from it, you're still 2 years away from a normal interest rate market. Meaning 6.5% is a normal interest rate market. I was 32 years old before I saw a rate under 5, and I've been doing this for 22 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's put that in perspective. That's Justin grew up in an environment that probably never saw a rate over 5.
Right.
But in perspective of how this economy is working and being back to normal, normally rates aren't below 5%.
No.
If you look at 100-year average.
Yeah.
They have only been normal this decade.
Right. Rates in the 6s are pretty normal.
And, they're not going to – they probably won't shock up more than a point this year.
Yeah.
But the trend for rates is up.
Yeah.
No matter what happens short-term. And independent. There's always short-term opportunities to lower rates.
Right.
There's banks that are built on that as a business philosophy.
Right.
But in general – if you lock and buy now, you're going to be paying less interest than 3 years from now. And that's, I think, what people have to keep in their heads from our side.
Yes.
Versus, is it a quarter low? Is it 4.99 versus 5? If it's lower than 6.5, then you're beating everybody in your family that's been here for hundreds of years that bought houses.
Right.
Take the win.
Right.
Slide it right off the table and buy a house.
Yeah.
So.
And chances are we're not going to see, because we did see rates move up this year. Then they started moving down a little bit. We didn't get back to where we were in the spring, summer, but most of the people in our industry, in the mortgage industry, are saying that even though rates are going to go up, they're probably going to go up a little bit slower. But that's one of the crazy things about our industry is 6 weeks from now, that could be a different story.
Yeah.
If the economy's still going well, rates are going to go up. There's just no stopping it.
And in terms of pre-quals on our side with rate, like we're seeing people far below their maximum threshold.
Right.
So like 2 years ago, most of our customers may be pushing the edge of where Fannie or Freddie would approve it for debt to obligation.
Right.
Now we're like 10% below it. And that's because the math is so powerful on the side of what Justin said in terms of an increase in buying and selling. It's just going to happen more and more.
Yeah.
We're still building 500,000 less houses than we need per year in this country.
Right.
And that number is exasperated in Massachusetts as a state.
Yeah.
Given the regulations, the environmental restrictions, and what they want to do for affordability in the city, there's not a lot of big-time building going on in the suburbs, and that's coming.
No, and right now the only big-time building that's going on in the suburbs is the 900,000 plus price point.
Yeah.
Because the EPA guidelines have made it so restrictive and expensive to put a subdivision in. It only makes it worth it if you're going to put up those big box houses. We need to get back to the days where you're putting up a $350,000 to $400,000 split level. You're putting in 100 of them at a time. That's the only way we're getting caught up. Building more $1 million houses isn't going to solve our problem.
No, it's not.
Unless they're going to turn them into 3 condos, which isn't likely either.
Absolutely not.
So let's talk about where we see the mortgage industry going and how you think that'll impact real estate going into next year, Job.
Well, I mean, I think that from our standpoint, what we'll see is steady rates. I don't think we'll have a rate that exceeds 5.5% in the year. Mm-hmm. And then I think the long-term trend is, like we already talked, upwards. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing that will affect the market this year is accessibility. Accessibility for lower down payments, for, like you guys just discussed, the buyer that may have gone to see 5 or 6 houses last year. Maybe they can come into this year and do it a lot cheaper in terms of down payment with 3% versus 5%. You're seeing all the agencies get a little bit more aggressive in terms of lending to people that have verifiable income and verifiable assets, which is the appropriate way we want to do it. And we'll have other products that come out that are pick and play. Like some of the products that are being offered that are coming back now that are non-qualified are good. If you're dealing with an investor or someone who made one mistake, that's, a professional that had a business that lost it, but still they're not things that I would use for family members, so they're not products that I think will impact Ross or a company like Lair, because that's we're not putting people in homes to even take a guess on sustainability. Like we've been down that road, and we all know where it goes.
Yeah. So we're very cautious about
that. But
that.
I think I feel better about the products we can do, their affordability and accessibility, and the way that we can deliver it locally than I ever have in the last 8 years. Yeah. This has been, for people who have experience, this has in some years been a real life nightmare.
Yes.
Absolutely. Rules changing in the middle of the game, having to explain it to borrowers without appearing like a moron. Banks that got through it like Ross, professionals that have been doing this for a long time, they have it down. This is going to be a good year for consumers.
Absolutely. And Justin, why don't we talk a little bit about the millennial perspective on buying?
Mm-hmm. You didn't want that from me, Bob?
I mean, you could probably give us anecdotally what you think, but
baby boomer, maybe.
I wouldn't peg you that old either, Joe. Not that that's a bad thing. Baby boomers buy houses too. But let's talk a little bit about what you see as a millennial.
Well, I mean, like we've kind of talked about, I think there's still the opportunity there. People are concerned that we're going to the top end of the market and that we can't really grow anymore. But Steve Harney from Keeping Current Matters says the big difference is that instead of appreciating, 4 to 5% every year like we were, maybe now we're seeing between 2.5% to 3% appreciation. And that's still a good amount of appreciation every year on your property. And then obviously, as the rates continue to go higher, you still want to try and get in while the rates are at a decent number. And you can still get some appreciation on your property. So I still think it's a great time for anyone to get into their, first home. Because, it's still much better than paying rent because the rent prices have skyrocketed. And,
And rent never goes away, ever.
Rent never goes away.
Yeah.
No, it never does. And it does not go towards anything.
No, that's one of the biggest ways the middle class builds wealth is through buying real estate and paying it off over time.
For first generation's family, it's frequently the only way.
Yeah.
Right.
And the fun thing is I actually did a side-by-side comparison on a property that I sold in Lowell. Sold a property in Lowell for $185,000. And that person actually ended up renting it for $1,800 a month.
Wow.
And first, last, and security on that property So you're collecting 3 months worth of rent.
Yeah.
With that being said, so what, $1,800, what is that?
$5,400.
Yeah.
All right. So that was your down deposit for rent.
Right.
If you went in and bought that at around 3%,
right.
it would be close to $7,000,
yeah.
$7,500.
Right.
So this person paid a little under $2,000 less to rent.
Right. Up front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When someone could have bought it at $7,500 down, and their monthly payment would only be around like $1,200.
Right.
But someone renting is paying $1,800 a month.
So the first 3 months that you own it, you got back the extra $2,000.
Correct.
You had to put out.
And that's the thing too, is people don't recognize the premium people are paying for their quote unquote no worry rental situations is enormous.
Yes.
It isn't market demand. There's plenty of apartments. I mean, look around if you want to drive. It's a lot of money that landlords are asking for in any rental situation, and they're getting because it's competitive. And this is a different state now. You can't drive any direction. We're in Justin's area, Westford. 60,000 people work in Westford.
Yeah,
that was not the case when I grew up here, like 8 or 9 years ago.
8 or 9 or 30. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like the growth in jobs, real life, like humans have to be their jobs, not telecommutable,
right?
Science based.
Yeah.
That's exactly feeds right into your mouth.
That's
not going away.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest difference is a lot of people are maybe afraid to jump into that first purchase because they're like, well, what happens if my heating system goes? What happens if my, what happens if my AC breaks? What happens if I need a new roof? So, whenever I sit with a first-time home buyer, my biggest thing is don't try and get in over your head.
Right.
Like, know your means, know your limits, and always – when you're putting your down deposit, make sure that you have money saved up for a rainy day because, things always happen in a house. When I bought my 4-family, I had to put a new roof on, a month later because it was leaking. And I knew it was older. Yeah. So I was mentally prepared to be there. So I think everyone has to be mentally prepared to understand that, if you have to do something, great, but make sure you're aware of that. Or, if you're really not ready to do that, maybe you should be looking for something that's maybe a little bit more expensive.
Yes.
But has all those things taken care of so that, you don't have to come out with that extra $5,000, dollars of expense where you could technically, maybe spend, let's just say $20,000 more.
Right.
And over
you spread that over 30 years, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's less than $100 a month.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a great point, and probably the only good part of a multiple bid situation is every month opportunity rises for people to save a little bit more money. Yep. And like Justin said, with a little bit more reserve money, it opens up. Maybe you weren't comfortable looking at a 2-family, but now because you've been waiting 5 months, you have a few more $1,000 saved.
Right.
I mean, what's the worst thing can happen in something like that? It's not people over project that. To your point,
right.
Walk it through, like he said, go through it with Justin, and figure out what the worst case scenario is so you don't have irrational fears.
Absolutely.
Because that's the worst thing for opportunity.
Absolutely right. We're just about out of time. I want to give out your contact info, Justin. So if you're looking to buy or sell anywhere in Middlesex County or even the surrounding areas, give Justin a call. It's Justin Melo at Lair Realty Partners in Chelmsford. The number is 978-758-5028. One more time, it's 978-758-5028. Thanks for coming on the show with us today, Justin.
Thank you for having me. I feel special being on the Christmas edition.
Yeah, I know. It was great having you guys. Yeah. Next year we'll have to sing at the end, but we ran out of time.
The last 30 seconds, Bob's just going to sing Ave Maria.
Rusty. All right, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.